Welcome everybody to our Silicon Valley Clean Energy monthly board meeting. And
Recording in progress.
welcome to our monthly board meeting of the Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And let's get rolling with our roll call.
Yes, thank you. Chair Tyson.
Here.
Vice Chair Walia.
Here.
Director Mohan.
Here.
Meadows.
Here.
Rennie.
Here.
Makachuk.
Present.
Carruthers.
Here.
Abe Koga.
Here.
Srinivasan.
Here.
Lee.
Present.
Hilton.
Here.
Chua.
Here.
Thank you. And I will note that currently Director Scozola is absent, but we do have a quorum of the board.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Let's move along to public comment on matters not listed on the agenda. This is the opportunity for the public to provide comments on any item not listed on the agenda. And there are some time limits and some other restrictions here. Let's see. Do we have anybody in the chambers here from the public who wishes to speak? I do not see any. Do we have any on Zoom?
No hands raised, Chair.
We do not. Thank you very much. Let's move then on to our next item, which is the consent calendar. And let's see if we have any comments or questions, any issue of interest in pulling an item on consent. I do not see any from in person, and tell me if there's any hands raised on Zoom.
No.
All right, well, I'm not sure which order we need to do it, but let's get for public comment. Were you gonna?
You're going to do public comment, then I'll make a motion.
Let's do it that way. Is there a preference? I don't even know. Let's go with public comment then on any items on the consent item. Okay. I do not see any in the room.
None online.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a second from Board Member Lee. Any further discussion? I do not see any, so let's go with the roll call vote.
Thank you. Chair Tyson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Walia.
Yes.
Director Mohan.
Yes.
Meadows.
Aye.
Rennie.
Aye.
Makachuk.
Aye.
Carruthers.
Aye.
Abe Koga.
Aye.
Srinivasan.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Hilton.
Aye.
Chua.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Great. Let's move on to our regular calendar then with the CEO report.
Thank you, Chair Tyson. Very happy to report that we are going to have 5 new employees introduced today. Thank you very much for approving the budget last year and encouraging us to increase our staff. We have 7 new staff since the beginning of the year. And today we're going to start with, we have one new employee who's going to be attending remotely, and then the other 4 are here in person. So we'll start with Jessica Fang, and she is going to be working in Monica's group, and she will be specializing in helping us with our load forecasting. Jessica, would you please introduce yourself to the board?
Thanks, Karesh. Good evening, Silicon Valley Clean Energy's Board of Directors. Nice to meet you. I hope you are having a good week so far. Sorry I couldn't meet you in person today because I have a cold. I'm Jessica Bing, and I just started at SVCEA as a power resource planner. I came from PG&E, but I also worked for Pacific Corp and the Central Electric Power Cooperative, respectively, in the past 12 years. I work in different roles on load forecast, load research, and energy market analysis. I'm very excited to join SVCE, the collaborative, efficient, and productive organization. The other reason I wanted to join SVCE is that the leadership of SVCE has a very good understanding of the dynamics of the utility industry and a very good vision of the development of the organization. I would like to grow professionally and personally with SVCE in the future. In my time outside of the work, I like spending time with my family and friends, hiking, traveling, tasting different food, and playing with my kids. Again, nice to meet you, and I'm very Excited to join SVCE, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person in the future. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Next up is going to be Alex Kraus. Alex, you can come on up. He is a senior quantitative analyst working in the admin and finance group, and he will be specializing in many things risk related. Alex?
Good evening. So I have a background where I started off at trading firms in New York City, went to Bank of America afterwards. I was in the prime brokerage unit looking at institutional portfolios, cross assets, so, equities, credit, fixed income currencies. And then I actually went to Hong Kong. I was at a credit fund out there specializing in high yield credit and private credit. So I was doing a lot of quantitative analysis, risk management there, built their analytics system. Was also looking at the hedging, the tail hedging of the portfolio for any black swan events. So I'm on the finance team here, very excited to be here. I thought that maybe I could take my finance skills and go into a more emerging industry that would have a better impact on society, and I feel that SVCE embodies that greatly. So really happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Alex. Next up is Leanna Hun. She comes to us most recently from the City of Palo Alto Utilities, and she will be working in the decarbonization group, the DPP group, as a senior program specialist. She did work for the City of San Jose prior to that, and another claim to fame, she got her bachelor's degree from UCLA. Yay.
Thanks for that lovely intro, Girish. Good evening, Board of Directors. My name is Leanna Huynh, and I'm the newest Senior Program Specialist on the Community Programs team. I'm so grateful to be joining such a powerhouse team at SVCE. I'm born and raised in San Jose, so being able to continue my career in public service, especially in a region that I grew up in, is really close to my heart. For the past 8 years, as Girish just mentioned, I've worked in the City of Palo Alto and City of San Jose, where I developed programs that helped small businesses and residents save money, improve their building health and comfort. And so I'm really excited to continue to do that at SVCE. In my previous roles, I had the great pleasure of collaborating with SVCE on its heat pump water heater rebate program and hosting the first ever South Bay electrification resource fair. So you can imagine how excited I was when I was tapped to join the team. So as Girish had mentioned, I started 3 weeks ago, and I'll be expanding our suite of decarbonization programs, especially to our multifamily residents. As you all know, this is going to be a really tough nut to crack, but I'm up for the challenge, and I want to thank the board for dedicating $11.5 million towards this effort. I really look forward to working with you all and making sure that everyone can be a part of our clean energy transition. And when I'm not working, you can find me in a hot yoga studio, building out my collection of indoor plants and helping out my family's small business. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Leanna. Those were all the employees who started in March. Now we'll move on to the April. 2 more. So Eric Rodriguez has been with us all of a week and a half. Super happy to have him here. He joins the DPP group, Justin's group, as a program lead, and he'll be working with Zoe. Previously, he was at the Building Electrification Institute, but I'll have him introduce himself.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Eric Rodriguez. I just joined as Girish. Thank you for your introduction. Joined SVC last week. I come from. I was a community organizer when I started off my career. It's something that I've been really passionate about, bringing people to policy and to decision making, like all of you. I more recently, so I grew up on the East Coast and. Did my master's in public policy at the University of Michigan, moved out here in 2020 for the fated pandemic, working for the City of San Jose and its COVID response. Really proud of the work that we did as a city. I led the city census campaign as well. And more recently, I worked for the Building Electrification Institute, as Girish mentioned, supporting cities on their building decarbonization strategies nationally. Lots of interesting learnings I'd like to bring to this team. And it's also a reason why I'm so excited to join SVCEs. I think that there's just so much opportunity for really measured and thoughtful policy and programs to be made in this building decarbonization space. And really excited about the team. And yeah, I'm excited to work with all of you in the future.
Eric, thank you so much. He's Eric number one. We're going to have another Eric join us in the 4Pro group, but we'll introduce him next month. The last up for this intro is Kaylee Dodson. She's been with us since this Monday. She will be working for the ESCO group with Adam Selvin. So we have a new hire in each of the 4 groups. Super excited about this being spread out. Kaylee, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you all. My name's Kaylee. I'm a newly minted energy services specialist. I have a background supporting small nonprofits. I've spent most of my career supporting the Northern Sierra Partnership, so I'm coming from conservation. I work to support a group of conservation organizations as we worked on acquisition and restoration campaigns in the region north of Lake Tahoe. Most recently, I completed a master's degree in environmental science and management with a focus on energy and climate issues. So I'm really excited to be making the transition to work in clean energy with SVCE. I look forward to applying my mix of skills to tackle a variety of projects with the ESCO team and support our customers and programs. A little bit about me, I live up in Pacifica near the coast, and I enjoy spending time at the beach, surfing, hiking with my husband and our dog. Yeah, again, really excited about this opportunity to grow with the team. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. She was also Division I water polo for Stanford. All right, so just amazing how much we're growing and just the breadth of skills and building capacity for our very ambitious decarbonization targets. Kevin Armstrong has been doing a bang-up job on getting a lot of this recruiting moving, and we continue to be interviewing various people, and we'll be making some additional hires in the next few weeks. Yes, Chair Tyson.
Just, I think on behalf of the board, I want to just say how impressed I am to hear about the story of Jessica, Alex, Leanna, Eric, and Kaylee, and we look forward to having your enthusiasm, energy, and skills and apply them to our efforts here. Thanks for joining us.
So a couple of other updates. I've been updating you on our expectation that we will be receiving some penalties. We haven't received that yet, but when we do, we'll inform you about it. On the legislative front, the governor has a budget change proposal just through a budget trailer bill. There are a few things in there, including increasing CPUC jurisdiction over CCAs that we are not very happy about. So we're going to be proposing some additional language. And this is actually going to become a policy bill. So we'll have an ability to provide some language in terms of what we'd be willing to live with. So we're working with CalCCA on that. I wanted to bring up our communications manager, senior communications manager, Pamela Leonard, to give you an outline of our upcoming Earth Day activities.
Good evening, directors. Nice to see you all, and I would like to wish you Happy Earth Month. We are back in full force with 16 events coming up in the next 2 weeks, being kicked off this Saturday with the City of Sunnyvale's Earth Day. And we have a couple of corporate events, so this is really a grand return after a few years off, as you can imagine. And we'll be in various communities, Mountain View, Cupertino, Los Gatos, just to name a few. Morgan Hill has a AAUW sponsored event that we'll be at, and we've sponsored. And then for the Fremont Union High School District, 5 high schools in our service area. They were an education fund recipient to host Earth Day and sustainability fairs that you may have heard about. The schools are advertising them. They're open to the community. And we will be attending 5 the last week of April. So we're very much looking forward to speaking. One event as well is an elementary school. Parents are organizing a sustainability event. So we get to go teach first and second graders about the importance of clean energy. So my team and I are just thrilled that we get to be back out in the community. And also that we have many more staff, as you can see, to share in the joy that is the community outreach work that we get to do as an organization. And so for you all, if you're interested in passing out some SVCE swag, speaking to customers about what they care about, we're always happy to have you join us at the booth. So please feel free to reach out to me or through Andrea. And each of your communities, if you're hosting an event, I'm sure they would appreciate you helping to amplify that these events are happening and to get your community members to attend and learn all about the resources related to sustainability efforts going on in our communities. So thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Any questions for Pam? Please do reach out to her. Yep.
I've got a comment on what you said earlier about the trailer bill, and I think that we've got 13 voices at SVCE, and I think that to the extent that Benna could advise us who to speak to, we should voice our opinion to our representatives in Sacramento.
Thank you very much, Board Member Makachek. We will definitely take you up on that. We work with CalCCA. At the end of the day, we have 200 cities in California that are served by CCAs, and the power of local accountability and elected officials cannot be underestimated. We'll take you up on that. Thank you. Also, before I close, you'll just notice that we have quite a few of our fantastic staff in the audience. We do have a 2-day all-hands retreat on Thursday and Friday, and so we have everyone here in person. And if any of you want to drop by for dinner at the end of tomorrow's event, it's at 5 p.m. I know you all have your council meetings and cities associations meetings. But if you have a chance, please do drop by and visit with us. That's the end of my report, Chair Tyson.
Great, thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments from the board members for our CEO and online? All right, thanks again. So let's move on then to item number 3, which is to delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to execute a power purchase agreement. And coming up, getting ready, is our Chief Operating Officer and Director, I know how to fill in here, of Power Resources, Monica Padilla.
Is this working? Yep. Good evening, everybody. And we also have with us
Charles Grinstead, Senior Manager of Power Resources.
That's who that is. All right, this is the first one. The first one's a short one, and so I'm going to go ahead and do it, even though I have to admit that Charles did all the work on this one. Which one? Okay, so this request tonight is to have the board delegate authority to the CEO to essentially finish the negotiations on a contract that we've been negotiating, I guess, for a few months now. It's called the Rio Bravo Fresno Biomass Energy Facility. It's a 25 megawatt project with expected estimated annual generation of 175,000 megawatt hours. They're offering it to us at a fixed price for a term of slightly less than 3 years, starting in May 2023, with a request for an authority not to exceed $60 million. The reason we're bringing this to you tonight is that this authority is not one that exists within the CEO's current authority, which is limited to $100,000 or with counterparties that are are pre-approved through enabling agreements. And so Rio Bravo Fresno is a new counterparty for us. I'll let Charles describe the project itself.
Oh, this one first.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, so Rio Bravo Fresno Biomass, it's as Monica mentioned, it's a 25 megawatt renewable generation facility. Its estimated annual generation is about 175,000 megawatt hours. It's going to deliver May 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2025. The expected portfolio, expected RPS that'll provide to our portfolio is about 4 to 5% per year. Along with the RECs that'll deliver, it'll also provide resource adequacy capacity. And this, because it's a base load resource, it'll provide 24 hours of RA, which will be effective in meeting RA reform in 2025. So just a little bit of background on the resource. It's located in California's agricultural region in the community of Malaga, which is near Fresno. And this resource was built in 1988. The fuel source for the facility is agricultural prunings in urban wood. The technology used is called circulating fluidized bed, boiler technology. This technology is used because it allows for more complete and efficient burn of biomass, thus air pollutants are dramatically reduced. It has a very low emissions factor of 0.04 metric tons of carbon emissions per megawatt hour, which equates to about 1 pound of emissions on SVC's power content label. Next slide. And so we're here requesting the board recommend delegation authority to the CEO to execute a short-term power purchase agreement with Rio Bravo Fresno with the following parameters, as we previously mentioned.
That's it for our presentation.
Great. Well, it certainly looks like an interesting one. It's small in size, but it's a new form of renewable energy for us. And so let's see if we have any questions or comments from the board members. Let's start with Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. The question I have is regarding this term emissions mitigation fund and fund to provide for the local community benefits as mentioned. At the end of the day, we are burning here, and there's emissions. And if we know in California, the Central Valley certainly is one of the areas with the most. Sorry.
That's the next item.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My bad.
It's okay. Yeah, this is the biomass facility. The next one is the Middle River Power peaker plant.
Thank you. Sorry. I withdraw my questions.
No problem. Do we have any others? I do not see any in the room. Online? No? All right. Well, in that case, I'd be looking for we're delegating authority, so I'm looking for a motion that would support that. Oh, public comment. I could do it either way, can't I? All right. Let's go with public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item number 3? I do not see any in the room, and I do not see any online. Now, I would love to have a, yes?
I'd just like to make a comment. This is going to contribute to our resource adequacy, and I think that that's a significant part of this contract. One of the benefits to Silicon Valley Clean Energy. So I just wanted to point that out. Mm-hmm. But I'd be pleased to make a motion, if I may.
Chair Tyson.
Yes?
Looks like Director Chua has her hand up.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's go ahead, Director Chua. Let's hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I was going to make a motion. The project I like because the facility allows for more complete and efficient burn of biomass. I was going to make a motion, but I'll go ahead and let.
You know what? Let's go ahead and have you make that motion.
Okay, thank you so much. Motion to have the CEO execute a power purchase agreement with the Rio Bravo Fresno Renewable Biomass Project.
Thank you, Director Chua.
And I'll second that motion.
There, we got it. Okay. Let's go for a vote.
All right. Thank you. Chair Tyson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Walia?
Yes.
Dr. Mohan?
Yes.
Meadows?
Aye.
Rennie?
Aye.
Mekachek?
Aye.
Carruthers?
Aye.
Abe Koga?
Aye.
Srinivasan?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Hilton?
Aye.
Chua?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries with Director Scozola absent.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to item number 4. It's a rather long resolution, but it's authorizing the CEO to finalize negotiations and execute a power purchase agreement. And this is a hybrid natural gas power plant and battery energy storage system. So I'll go straight on to our staff report. And it looks like you're still in the chair. So let's go ahead and hear your report.
Okay, so sorry, Chair Tyson, I'm going to just start off with a couple of comments before handing it over to Monica. So back a couple of months ago, we talked to you, we kind of had a long discussion on capacity and energy and what keeps the lights on in California, that you need to have enough capacity, which is like an insurance product. You need to have it on when the sun doesn't shine or the wind stops blowing. You need to have that. And as we know, climate change has resulted in hotter summers, which means higher demand than we anticipated even just a few years ago. So the state, Governor Newsom, we all have an eye on making sure we have enough capacity. And Director Mekachek referred to the term of art called resource adequacy. We need to have enough of that in place. During my CEO report, I also talked to you about the citations we expect to receive for the lack of resource adequacy or capacity that we were unable to buy for this summer. So it's really important for us to buy enough capacity to make sure that we keep the lights on in California. We're also very committed to, along with the state, to make sure that the gas fleet in California continues to be reduced over the next 20 years. That's part of the state's goals. That's also something that we want to do. So part of what we are getting at over here is we're trying to bring some innovation to this concept. If we do want to invest in capacity for the long term, how can we innovate with that? How can we be equitable and look at some environmental justice issues too while we're considering this? So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our COO, Monica Padilla.
Okay. All right, so this is going to be a little more complicated and lengthy one than the last one. So today we're requesting essentially approval of a resolution, and the resolution has 3 main components to it. The first one is to delegate authority to the CEO to finalize negotiations and execute a power purchase agreement with Middle River Power, as Garis mentioned, for a what we call the Hanford Hybrid Natural Gas Power Plant. And we need this resource, again, to meet resource adequacy, and it also meet a portion of our midterm reliability procurement order requirements. The resolution also asks you to approve an exception to the board-approved energy risk management policy to manage costs associated with the Hanford PPA. And I'll describe that a little bit later on. And then last, it directs the board to direct, or ask the board to direct us, the staff, to come back with a proposal on developing a fund and guidelines or principles to help us mitigate some of the emissions associated with this project that currently exist. And as Garish mentioned, one of the interesting things about this is the inclusion of a battery at this site, which will naturally reduce the emissions over time. So just a little bit of overview here in terms of background. We have come to the board on several occasions over the last few months to talk about SVCE's clean energy goals and our capacity or reliability needs. And so in January, I talked to you at length about how SVCE and staff is committed to meeting our 100% clean goals as provided by the board in terms of their directive to us. And then in February 2023, we came to the board to talk about reliability and the difference between clean energy goals and the need for reliability or capacity products. And then in February of 2023, we had a discussion with the executive committee about reliability, resource adequacy, and some of the challenges that we're facing, particularly for 2023, including, as Garish mentioned, the prospect of a penalty because we were not compliant in 2023. And then last, this is wrong here, but in March 2023, we actually went to the executive committee and talked to them about this Hanford PPA, and we received unanimous support at the executive committee for this project. So today we're going to talk a little bit more, provide another just brief overview of what we already talked about over the last few months. But really the focus today is going to be about this Hanford project and how it incorporates into our portfolio, both from energy and a capacity perspective, and how it's a nice alternative to the status quo of what we've been doing to meet resource adequacy. This is a slide that I shared back in February. It just shows that California is being driven by some pretty aggressive greenhouse gas reduction goals, including trying to get to 100% clean electricity by 2045. And to get to that clean future in 2045, essentially we're going to have to transition away from fossil fuel resources that have been pretty much the fleet of the past to a more cleaner source of both energy and capacity. And so by 2045, we're going to be looking at a lot more renewables, including solar and storage, an expanded demand response or distributed energy resource portfolio, and some new technologies that maybe we haven't seen yet, including offshore wind and some hydrogen-related technologies. Just a reminder, when we talk about reliability, we talk about it in the context of trying to meet energy demand at all times. And so if you recall, we talked a little bit about this last time. Capacity is just the maximum output of electricity. We usually refer to it in terms of nameplate capacity, but there's also qualifying capacity when we talk about resource adequacy. Energy is the amount of electricity generated over time. When you look at both elements, that contributes to reliability and how effective a particular type of power plant or resource technology is at meeting reliability. And so we also shared with you last time just again to emphasize that reliability, for the most part, is not a really big issue. It's when you have these big heat waves or demand days where we are, on the margin in terms of being able to meet our demand. And if you recall, we had a big heat wave back in September 6th that lasted 4 or 5 days. This graph here just reminds you that natural gas, at the end of the day, is what kept the lights on. That and a lot of demand response that was ordered by the governor. And then we talked about how each different type of resource or technology contributes to reliability. Natural gas, the type of fleet that we've had for a long time, and geothermal and now biomass, the type of contract that you just approved, provides a steady 24-hour basis for capacity or reliability. But as we transition to a cleaner grid and start to add more renewable or intermittent resources, including solar and wind, those capacity factors or those ability for those types of resources to meet reliability are compromised significantly. And so this graph here just shows how those different types of technologies contribute to reliability relative to baseload and natural gas resources. And then if you add storage in, it helps, but it doesn't help a whole lot. It allows us to shift some energy from one period of time to later in the evening. And then we also talked to you about the different types of products that we buy. So we are required by California law and then directed by the board, again, to have 100% clean energy on an annual basis. And we've met that requirement since we started in 2018. We also have a renewable portfolio standard, and that RPS is set by the state, but the board has also set a more aggressive RPS than the state has. And then we also have reliability procurement mandates that are ordered by the California Public Utility Commission. So for those requirements, we need to purchase energy type contracts, and we buy them through different types of technologies, including hydro, solar plus storage, geothermal, and wind. And we usually buy them through long-term power purchase agreements, or PPAs, or short-term resources. To meet reliability, we are required to buy capacity products. And that's mainly for resource adequacy and also for reliability procurement mandates. We buy all types of technologies there too, natural gas, solar, geothermal, wind, and storage. And we buy those contracts either through bundled with our PPAs or through short-term RA capacity-only products. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Charles Grinstead to walk us through resource adequacy and the Hanford project itself.
Thanks, Monica. Yep, so, sure. Yeah, I just want to give a really brief overview of the resource adequacy programs. We've talked a lot about RA, just in the context of resources, but maybe just a brief overview. The California Public Utilities Commission, the CPUC, oversees the RA program. they determine load-serving entities' obligations, so those peak requirements that we have that we try to meet with resources month to month. They also determine technology effectiveness. So when they look at a solar resource or wind resource, they try to make the determination of how much those technologies contribute to reliability. So just for some context, SVC's RA capacity requirement in terms of peak on an annual basis is about 850 megawatts. And so I'm just noting here, SVC expects to be deficient in calendar year 23. There were some changes to our obligations, also changes to technology effectiveness when they reran studies to relook at solar resources and wind in particular. There's also a lot of scarcity in the market that we weren't anticipating necessarily, and then also PPA project delays. So a lot of constraints in the supply chain, which affected a lot of our planned procurement and kind of cascaded into the problems that we saw in 2023. I will move on to the next slide. And so just to kind of orient the board here with SVC's PPAs and their contribution to RA capacity, SVC does not have a clean capacity goal, but we do have over 900 megawatts of clean capacity that qualifies for about 408 megawatts of RA capacity. And so if you look here at the chart, all this nameplate capacity equates to about the 408 megawatts that I mentioned. Solar plus storage takes the biggest hit in terms of its effectiveness reduction. Resources like geothermal take a smaller hit. But as we look at that 850 megawatt requirement, we've done a significant amount of progress in building a portfolio that is clean, but only a portion of it, half of it, contributes to reliability. And so, we're obviously making a lot of progress in new procurement. We have the MTR order where we're looking at more clean resources, but we still have a long way to go. We also have some issues with the CPUC reorienting and reconstructing their RA program to look at RA not only on a peak basis, but for 24 hours a day. And so these things can shift the way that we look at RA and plan our portfolio. So wanted to kind of build on this concept of energy versus capacity and looking at our portfolio. So when we look at an estimate for 2025, we see that we have these different technologies in our portfolio, and they contribute on an annual basis in the first column here with gigawatt hours. As a percent of our total retail sales, each one of these technologies contributes in a slightly different way. Most of our renewable technologies contribute a significant portion of our retail sales, but from an RA perspective, they contribute a fraction of that. Where we pick up the slack in our portfolio is really with battery storage and natural gas. We're trying to make efforts in procuring more battery storage, but as I mentioned, supply chain is difficult. So we pick up a lot of natural gas RA-only short-term contracts. And so, we see this as an opportunity in our portfolio to relook at the technologies that are available and also the existing projects on the grid. But this just really gives you a sense of, renewable technology provides a lot towards retail sales, but the RA capacity is a fraction of that. And so clean capacity challenges. So as I mentioned, we have all these different technology strategies that we're looking at. However, in the current market, there's a long lead time to build these projects. So in the very near term, it's unrealistic to expect that we can build new battery projects or offshore wind in the next 3 to 5 years. And so we're looking at all the different options on the table, projects like Hanford, and seeing how we can improve those projects and retain the reliability benefits. And so SVC's reliability challenges and strategies. The status quo is we have 900 megawatts of renewable projects under long-term contract to meet clean energy. However, renewables and storage capacity effectiveness is expected to decrease over time. Natural gas power plants will continue to be needed for reliability over the next 10 to 20 years. And RA market is tightening and costs are increasing. So we have historically relied on short-term natural gas RA-only contracts. However, we're seeing that exposes us to price run-ups and then also just shortages from inability to contract. And so regulatory uncertainty around future procurement orders and central procurement of clean capacity are other issues that we're also seeing transforming in the regulatory space. So how does SVCE adapt? in this current environment, our strategy is here to layer in longer-term gas RA purchases to reduce sensitivities to price, supply, and compliance risk. We still have the overarching strategy to continue to plan for a clean energy transition, but we see this transition occurring over a slightly longer period of time and ultimately reaching that goal in 2045. So introducing the Hanford hybrid natural gas power plant with battery energy storage system. So this diagram shows how we think of the facility, one in terms of emissions reduction and then in reliability. So the battery is really there for emissions reduction. It's 131.4 megawatts of energy storage. It can charge that same amount, so it's a 1-hour battery. The intended use of the facility, of the battery facility, will be to shift energy to when it is needed once per day. It's primarily going to be charging during solar hours and then discharging into the evening peak, where natural gas is primarily being utilized heavily for reliability. And so by co-locating the facility, we'll be economically displacing peaker energy with grid charged energy, which will primarily be solar. And so because we are placing it alongside the peaker, it's being constrained by one transmission point and effectively competing economically with that peaking gas resource. So why keep the peaking facility there? Well, it's there because the storage resource is limited in duration. The peaking resource can generate 24 hours a day, and we see that as a reliability adder to the project and to the grid itself. And so one of the features of a peaking gas resource is it doesn't need to run all day. It can start up and shut down quickly. And just the note here is that it can generate within 10 minutes of being idle. And so when we do our modeling, we show that over time, the battery energy storage system will compete for transmission capacity at the site, and the natural gas peaking facility will operate less and less, thus reducing emissions at the Hanford project location. And so just going over the different attributes and the benefits. So the attributes are the project is an existing 99.4 megawatt peaking natural gas facility, and we'll be receiving energy toll and RA capacity products. In addition to the existing peaker, there is the new battery energy storage system. It's 131.4 megawatts of 1-hour lithium ion storage. It's being priced to us as a fixed price for RA and energy toll, and the expected cost is $280 million. We anticipate that the expected commercial operation date will be April 2024 with a term of 12 years, and also just noting that the location is in Fresno, California. So some of the benefits that SVC will be receiving, it's a lot of RA capacity. It's 115.4 megawatts. 99.4 will be coming from the peaking facility, and then 16 megawatts qualifies for RA of that 131.4 megawatts of battery. So because it is a new battery, it'll contribute to our midterm reliability goals of 16 megawatts. And so just to note here about energy tolls, SVC will be able to dispatch the energy from the peaking facility and also from the battery, and we'll primarily be using that during constrained market conditions for reliability and also under limited operating constraints. And so just showing this table again, but with Hanford included here. And so the battery storage numbers are going up here by 2%. That's Hanford's effect on this table. And then also noting here that Hanford is included at the bottom. So on average, over the course of the term of this project, it's estimated that it'll generate about 8 gigawatts of energy. And that accounts for about 0.2% of our retail sales, so a very small amount. However, it'll contribute 16% of our RA requirement. So a significant amount of RA for a small amount of energy being produced towards our retail sales. And so environmental impacts, because the resource is expected to have these two competing facilities, the generation from the peaking facility is expected in our modeling to be quite low, so 8,000 megawatt hours or 0.2% of our SVC load. And we estimate this to be about 5,000 metric tons of CO2 emission per year. There are other types of emissions generated at the site like SOx and NOx, however, we don't record those as an LSE as SVCE. And so some of the underlying principles here of the project, I want to repeat here that the battery will compete with the gas power plant. It is using the same point of interconnection transmission So only one resource can effectively generate and put energy onto the grid. Also, our modeling shows that GHG emissions are expected to decrease over time. There are minimal reporting emissions on the power content label, and we are also considering establishing a fund to mitigate impacts. The fund details will be discussed with the board and other stakeholders. I'm going to pass it back to Monica.
Yeah, so just to kind of summarize, I think we're going to need to use all kinds of different strategies in order to meet reliability, clean energy, and resource adequacy specific requirements. The Hanford PPA is an alternative to what we've done in the past, as Charles has mentioned. The status quo just is not going to work anymore for us. And again, just to kind of summarize the benefits of the Hanford PPA, in addition to offering so much resource adequacy capacity and meeting our midterm reliability procurement requirements, or a portion of it, it offers very little development risk. And as we've signed 18 PPAs with 16 active, we've come to understand what development risk is really, really well. And so acquiring this resource adequacy or reliability product from an existing project minimizes that risk significantly, although there is still a little bit because the battery is new and that'll have some slight development risk. As we modeled this resource in our portfolio, it adds value to the portfolio in terms of it's expected to be a good contributor, again, both from an energy hedge perspective and from a capacity reliability perspective. And we believe that the Hanford PPA and the term of the PPA, which is 12 years, aligns well with the transition California is facing to a clean grid. That is going to be done in conjunction with all the other stuff that we're currently doing to increase our clean capacity portfolio. We're going to continue to do that. We have to do it for many reasons, including our RPS and midterm reliability and just our board directives. And as we included in the strategic plan, we have a strategic focus area to look at how to get to 24/7 carbon free. What is our pathway there? And so we'll need to consider how this project fits into that. We'll also look to see if there's any other opportunities similar to this Hanford one to continue to add a reliable source of capacity to our portfolio. We'll continue to pursue clean capacity, as I mentioned, and then we'll also have to look at how to build up our portfolio of demand response, distributed energy resources, and or virtual power plants to kind of help us on the edge. Those aren't big contributors to resource adequacy, but they can certainly help us in a bind. And then just to kind of give you, looking at that same planning horizon through 2045, when we need to get to 100% clean, we see our portfolio both from an energy standpoint and a capacity standpoint changing over time. And so we believe that eventually we'll get to something that matches clean energy with our load on a closer to 24/7 basis. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but it'll be closer to what we have now. And we also believe that we'll have a much cleaner capacity or reliability portfolio. So we think that by 2045, about 75% of our portfolio for capacity will come from clean resources, mainly storage, some offshore wind, some out-of-state wind. But we'll probably always have a reliance to some extent on natural gas to meet reliability. So the request again, to summarize today, is for the board to approve the resolution 2023-06, which does the following. It delegates authority to the CEO to finalize and execute a power purchase agreement with Middle River Power for the Hanford hybrid natural gas power plant with battery energy storage system with the following parameters. And I'm not going to read through all of those. And then second, it approves an exception to the energy risk management policy to enable gas transactions needed to manage Hanford PPA. Now, I didn't talk much about this, but currently the energy risk management policy has a set of approved transactions. And within that approved transactions is a tolling agreement. And so it doesn't explicitly say a gas toll agreement. So by approving this resolution, you're essentially approving a gas toll agreement. The second thing that is needed is that currently we don't have the authority to procure gas under the energy risk management policy. It's not an approved product. And so we need to make an exception to the policy, which will enable us to buy gas for when the resource does run. And as we explained, we expect it to run for a few hours or more than a few hours a year. And so that exception to the energy risk management policy is needed so that we are in compliance with our own policy. And then third, it directs staff to develop a policy and or guidelines to set aside funds to be used for programs and or projects to mitigate the emissions associated with the energy produced by the Hanford project, resulting from the Hanford PPA as well. And so we, Charles talked a little bit about those emissions. We expect them to be pretty small. The project, would have run whether we were there or not. We actually believe that we're improving the emissions at the site by adding the battery, and that the emissions will reduce over time. And with that, that's our presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. It's certainly a complicated proposal and a bit of a sea change, I guess you'd say, for us. We've looked at our clean energy future, and we're determined, as we have been, to move in that direction, but it's a rockier road, I think, than we saw. Do you mind putting slide 12 up again? Just I'm just framing a little bit of what I've just heard here. Just say, well, here's the world we're living in. Natural gas is part of that future. It's part of the present, I shall say. And so how do we best manage that? And I look to these bullet points 1 through 4 at the bottom of this slide here to say, why are we in this situation? And it's because the regulators have created more limits in what we can do. That's the changes to the obligations. We heard about the technology effectiveness. Pricing has changed, and then we've had some project delays. So despite our best efforts, I think we're finding ourselves facing a project like this. And so if we're going to use natural gas and have it fit in, what's the smartest way to do that is how I think I saw or heard what you said. So with that, after my little speech there, let me see if there are other comments or questions from the board members. Let's start with Director Mekachuk.
Thank you. Well, I guess we've seen this coming for a little while, and we've been educated on it. I really like this project for what it does for our resource adequacy, and I really like the battery storage. And if you could go to slide 22, I believe. And what I'd really like to see on the right-hand side is that third bullet point, pursue additional clean capacity resources, including the storage component. So my question was, where are there other Hanford projects out there? Are there more out there? And are other peaker plants now starting to co-locate batteries with the peaker plants? Maybe you could just give us some high-level color on that, please.
Sure, yeah. So there is actually a few other projects, one specifically called Wellhead, where they've added a battery, another called Malaga. They've all done a similar thing where they have additional space at their sites and ability to connect to transmission. And so they're looking at those opportunities and offering them to clean CCAs such as Marin Clean Energy, and then also perhaps even East Bay Community Energy. So we are seeing that there is a transformation of these existing peaker facilities, specifically peaker facilities, and pairing a battery to them. So we're keeping our eye on the ball in terms of seeing other projects like this and perhaps bringing them to board for evaluation.
Thank you.
Did we have a Director Lee comment or question?
Yeah, thank you very much for the report, and certainly learned a lot from the. I guess it's the reality is that since even back in 2021, in the state of California, about 50% of our energy source for generating electricity is natural gas, and as much as we call ourselves SVCEA Clean Energy, the reality turns out that we actually are using about half of natural gas, whether we want or not, due to this capacity issue. So certainly, I'm not excited to see that we're using natural gas, and certainly we hope that we are going to be reducing reliance. But as we can see, the amount that's being generated by solar and wind, as much as is increasing for the past 10 years, is nowhere near what is needed for the usage that we have. Number one. The second thing is, it was fortunate that the nuclear power plant, Diablo Canyon, is being kept open past 2025, because had we not have that, we probably would have to switch to even more natural gas usage. So that being said, I mean, it's the reality of why we have to move toward that. So I guess my further question on this would be, the battery, the 32% that you mentioned, again, even though that's battery storage, which is good, this is still coming from natural gas, correct?
Well, actually, a lot of our storage projects are paired with solar, so they're primarily going to be charging from solar energy. I think all of our projects are solar plus storage paired, so they're not necessarily charging from the grid. It's only from some solar energy.
Right. The rest of the PPP, I'm talking about this very specific project. When you talk about the
Hanford.
Yeah, the Hanford, right? Those battery, the 60 megawatts of the 1 hour lithium ion storage, that came from natural gas into the battery storage. Am I missing? No.
It's going to share transmission with the facility, but it's going to be charging from the grid. It doesn't charge from the peaking facility.
From the grid.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and as Charles mentioned, when we charge the battery is almost always going to correlate to when the prices are lowest. And prices are always lowest when the sun is shining really bright.
Correct.
And so most likely we'll be charging from solar. Even though it's not directly a charge, the grid is being served by solar at the time that we'll be charging the battery.
Great. And then the other question I have is regarding the cost of the natural gas. As we have seen, the fluctuation of the rates for natural gas for the past few months has been, frankly, ridiculous. The price, I was just looking at this one chart for Southern California gas per therm, went from $1 in December to $3.44 in January, February $1.10, and March is 59 cents. I mean, that fluctuation is just so ridiculous, right? So by getting a long term, are we getting it at the 59 cents rate for the 12 years, or are we getting it at the $3 rate? It's the question I'm coming from.
So, great question. Most of the cost over here is fixed cost just for the capacity. What you were talking about is the commodity cost.
Right.
And so that's why that second recommendation, which gives us the ability to buy gas, we'll be looking at this. There may be some hedging products we may be able to buy to keep that stable. But we expect to use this as an insurance product pretty much when prices are quite high. So you have a great point. If prices are $3.44 a therm, the price of the electricity coming out of this is going to be quite high.
Right.
So that's, Charles actually has been on a trading desk before, and he's done this kind of hedging. So he'll continue to lead the effort on this.
Great, thank you. I'm glad that we're getting these hedging experts onto our team to make sure that we are buying these electricity, because it really is an open market and very, very complicated and risky in many ways. That would, of course, hurt our bottom line. And then going back to my early question, basically, is relating to the issue of the emissions mitigation fund in terms of community, local community benefits. So could we somehow tie the fund to mitigate the direct impacts of our production where the power plant is at to help offset the impact to a local community, in this case, Central Valley?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's our thought. We haven't fleshed out our thinking, so we're actually looking for any kind of input from the board, and we'll bring back a proposal to you. But that's essentially what we're thinking about. Both the installation of the battery reduces emissions compared to if the battery had not been put in place.
Mm-hmm.
So on top of that, we're looking at setting aside some money for local emission reduction. So similar to what we did with the Diablo Canyon project, where we've taken the savings and translated back into a reinvestment into our community. For example, Adam was just telling me earlier this week, you had approved providing battery packs for medically compromised customers. And that project is moving forward. And that's with those savings, right? So similarly, we'll figure out some criteria and come to you with that. But local is what we're looking at.
Great. And then I guess this might be a dumb question here. When I look at the RE capacity, earlier chart shows that the large hydroelectricity looks like we have a lot of it, but when it comes to capacity, it's like zero. could you help explain why such a drop on capacity, our capacity, please?
So what we reflect in that chart is we buy two types of large hydro products. One is we buy essentially just the energy attributes, and so no capacity comes with it. And the second is we get an allocation from a portion of PG&E's portfolio, and they only allocate to us the greenhouse gas free attributes. They don't allocate to us the resource adequacy or the reliability capacity. So we're only getting energy products from those large hydro resources that we procure to meet our clean energy goals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we are still buying the stuff from them. It's just that we're not getting the other credit from
Yeah,
them.
we only buy a portion of the output of the facility.
Yeah, that's why this business is so complicated.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Sure.
Great, thank you, Director. Director Srinivasan?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Great presentation. I had one question. I understand the demand and supply inequality. That's why we have to buy reliability sources. But then in slide 23 or 24, you said that reduce greenhouse gases over time. Is that because of the increased battery capacity, or?
Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so are you referring to the Hanford project in just in isolation? Yeah, so
Sure.
when you add the battery to the project, what we find is that it's because the charged energy is effectively cheaper than the peaker, it's going to be dispatching more and more often. And so over time, the peaking facility and energy prices out in the market are so low that the peaker doesn't dispatch. It's just the battery shifting energy from low priced hours to high priced hours. But over time, the peaking facility doesn't generate. So that's the emissions reduction that we're modeling and that we're showing over time.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question, previous calendar item, we had Rio Bravo Fresco. Is that the same location as this project, or I heard the same location? Is that correct, or?
Somewhat close, yes.
Yeah, okay.
They're both in Fresno County.
Right.
I think we looked at a map. They're pretty close to each other, yeah.
Okay. Okay, those are the questions. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any questions, comments? I do not see any here. Let's look online. All right, in that case, let's go to the public. Do we have any public that wish to comment on this item? I see one hand raised. Please find your way to the front here, and we'd love to hear from you.
My name is Eric Muller. I'm a customer. Sure. I am a customer of SVCEA. My comment here is you are starting to see the beginning of the difficulties. So far, the ride was easy, right? They promised you would get fossil-free electricity. It would get better and better. And right there, it's getting worse. And this is only the beginning. Okay? That's a fact. What you will need is support of the community to support your actions and your decisions. And you need to educate the community now. You need to build advocacy for you now, so that when you make the hard choice and they are unpleasant, you are not left in the dark, like Governor Davis was in 2000.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? I do not see any in the room. Do we have any online? We do not. With that, I'd be looking for a motion for item number 4.
Yeah, motion to approve staff recommendations.
Which will include all 3 of the items that are in the statement.
Yes, by resolution 2023-06. Second.
We have a
Koga.
Motion and a second then. Let's go for a vote.
Thank you. I will begin with you, Chair Tyson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Walia?
Aye.
Director Mohan?
Yes.
Meadows?
Aye.
Rennie?
Aye.
Makachuk?
Aye.
Carruthers?
Aye.
Abe Koga?
Aye.
Srinivasan?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Hilton?
Aye.
Chua?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries with Director Scozola absent.
Great. Thank you for the discussion and for the information. That's quite a lot for us to swallow in a couple different ways, and I think we've just made a decision. Let's move on now to item number 5, which is a resolution to update the design of our e-elect generation rate discount program. And is Peter coming up? There we go.
Good evening, directors. Also, we're here to discuss a recommended update to our electrification discount design. Okay, so today we'll be asking you to approve a design update to our electrification or e-elect discount. Specifically, we'll be recommending that you approve the TOU Super design with the TOU discounts seen here. We'll discuss those in a lot more detail. But what I really want to underscore at the start is that this is an opportunity for us to change the design structure of the already approved discount so that it rewards customers more the more they shift their energy in a way that helps the grid, which we'll be referring to as beneficial electrification. So a little background before we get into the design details. In December, the board approved $9.5 million to pre-fund a multi-year discount to help with the bill impacts of electrification. This discount was approved specifically for customers enrolling in the e-elect rate, which I'll discuss more in just a moment. We currently have in place what we're calling a flat 10% discount, and I'll discuss what the flat means soon, but effectively we have a 10% discount for e-elect customers compared to all of our other rates, which are currently at 4%. And I do want to note that at the time that we proposed this to the board in December, staff was very aware that the customers who will primarily be benefiting from an electrification discount will be single-family homeowners who can afford to voluntarily electrify, and that a discount like this will be much less accessible to low-income, especially renters in apartment buildings. So in parallel, we recommended and the board approved an equal $9.5 million to add to the multifamily direct install program to balance some of those equity concerns. So a little background on the e-elect rate specifically. This is a new rate that PG&E introduced in December 1st of last year. It's called the electric home rate. It's a voluntary opt-in residential rate. However, to qualify, customers have to prove that they own and operate one of the following devices. So they have to have a heat pump, space or water heater, an EV, or a battery. And as it's set up, this rate is currently unavailable to NEM customers, though PG&E does plan to open the rate to NEM or solar customers in the future. And so we could ask, why make this design update now instead of waiting until the rate's fully open to NEM customers? But there's two kind of main reasons that we're recommending to move forward now. The first is that the timing is unclear as to when PG&E will make this update. And the second is that electrification is already much more cost effective for customers who do have solar and have locked in lower rates compared to customers in existing homes who are electrifying and don't have the benefit of solar systems. So this is an exciting opportunity to do something a little bit different. So the discount is approved. However, we're recommending to get a little more creative with the structure of the discount design, which is new territory for us, but it really is in alignment with our decarbonization mission. The electrification discount kind of goes hand in hand with our programs that we have. We have a lot of great programs that help reduce project cost when we talk about electrifying appliances. However, the discount is intended to go with that to really help drive down bill costs. However, we can take it a step further through creative design of the discount so that we promote beneficial electrification. And what we really want to highlight about this is this means lower customer bills, less stress on the grid, and also aligning customer usage with renewable generation. A little timeline as background for this. As I mentioned, the board approved the discount in December of last year. On January 1st of this year, the 10% flat discount went into effect for customers enrolling in ELEC. Over the past couple of months, staff have been iterating designs and running analysis. And throughout that time, we've had 2 kind of deep dives with internal staff for recommendations. In March, we brought this recommendation to the executive committee, who was very supportive and offered some great feedback, which we've incorporated into the presentation tonight. So next, I'm going to take you into some of the design details as well as some of the customer impact. So we've looked at 4 different design approaches for this electrification discount, and they're all based around TOU, or time of use periods. So at the bottom of this slide, you can see the daily recurring TOU structure for the ELEC rate, and it's the same as the EV rate, where there are 3 different pricing periods. Off-peak from midnight to 3 p.m. every day with the cheapest electricity. We have partial peak in the middle from 3 to 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. to midnight. And then we have peak that coincides with the top of the duck curve from 4 to 9 p.m. where electricity is the most expensive. And so the ELEC rate and the EV rate are set up with this structure to really try to encourage more usage in the off-peak period. And so that the bigger the difference between the peak price and the off-peak price, the more usage is driven towards the off-peak period. What we realize when we look at a flat 10% discount, and what I mean by flat is that a customer gets 10% off of their electricity regardless of the time that they use that electricity. So whether it's off-peak or it's peak, they get 10% off. But as we know, a 10% discount is worth more on a larger commodity. So 10% off of $100 is more valuable than 10% off of $10. So we're actually giving a larger discount off of the peak electricity, and we're decreasing the difference between peak and off-peak with our traditional discount structure. So that prompted us to look into some TOU-based designs. We started with a standard, which is shifting the discount entirely to off-peak and having 0 discount for the other periods. But then we tried pushing that a little bit further with the TOU Plus, where we actually slightly increase peak energy cost relative to PG&E so that we can more deeply discount the off-peak. And we took this to the first internal staff review meeting, and we came out of that with a directive that this really feels like the direction we should be heading, and they wanted to see us push that even further. So we came up with the recommendation, the 4th option that we're recommending tonight, the TOU Super. So to put some numbers to these different design options, here you can see across all the time of use periods the discount. And so on this table, a negative indicates cheaper cost than PG&E for electricity generation, and a positive indicates a price increase over PG&E. So as you can see, the flat 10% is, as you would expect, 10% across the board. The TOU standard is 0% for peak and partial peak with the discount all off peak. But the TOU Plus and Super, we get into the territory where we're actually slightly increasing peak price. And I'll note that all of these options were designed to be roughly cost neutral to SVCE for the average customer. But to really gauge the impact that this would have on customers, we took a deep dive into how our customers use energy throughout the year to understand what is the balance of our customer in terms of their annual off-peak versus peak electricity consumption. And we came up with these 3 different profiles. And so our average customer on this slide represents about 90% of SVCE customers, with around 55% of their usage throughout the year in the off-peak period and 25% on peak. And so really this is the core of our customers. But we also wanted to look at the 2 bookends. Who are the customers who have programmed their appliances to use as much off-peak as possible and made all their behavioral changes that they can to really kind of flex as much off-peak as possible? And then on the other end, we wanted to look at the 5% of customers who are using the most peak electricity to see how these discount structures would impact those customers as well. So when we ran these 3 different customers through the design options, these are the results. And so what we're looking at on the left is the customer's annual savings. So this is their discount reward. As you can see right off the bat, all customers save money under all scenarios. The percentage above each bar represents the percentage savings relative to what they would have paid on PG&E, because this is how we're used to kind of talking about our rate discounts. And so there's kind of 3 main takeaways that I want to highlight on this slide. The first is that even the heavy peaker on the TOU super rate with that 10% increased peak electricity cost still ends up with a 3% discount relative to PG&E, which is pretty good considering most of our rates are at 4%. The second kind of takeaway is that the average customer on the TOU Super would end up at the same place that they would today if they enrolled at that same 10%. But then the most exciting takeaway is that that same customer could almost double their discount through behavioral and programming changes. And so to kind of put this in perspective of the decarbonization, electrification journey, I'm going to walk you through some steps for the average customer electrifying their single-family home. So here we start with a customer with a mixed fuel gas and electric home. Their average monthly bill is around $270 a month. They take advantage of SVCEA's Future Fit Homes to retrofit their gas water heater to a heat pump water heater, and they're saving about $6 a month while still being on the TOUC rate. But now that they have the heat pump water heater, they qualify for the ELEC rate with SVCEA's discount, and so by enrolling in that program, they're saving about $20 a month compared to when they started. Eventually, they electrify their gas furnace to a heat pump space heater, and now they're saving over $30 a month. And then this final fifth step that's made possible by the TOU Super design structure, this customer then programs their devices to operate in as much of the off-peak period as possible. They make the behavioral changes that work for their lifestyle, and now they're saving almost $50 a month compared to when they first started. And at that point, they're done. They can go back to living their life, and they continue to reap the rewards in terms of bill savings. And so this is kind of really the story that we want to tell, and how this kind of creative discount structure ties into our programs. The executive committee recommended that we pilot a time guarantee for the discount, meaning that customers who enroll are guaranteed that the discount would be in effect at least through a certain period of time to give them more confidence in investing in electric appliances. So we thought this was a great idea, but it's something that we want to kind of wade into and really flex as a learning experience. So we're recommending that we start with the first phase, open to the first 1,000 enrolled customers, and that we guarantee the discount remains in effect at least through January 1st of 2027. And during this time, we plan to really actively market the discount to Future Fit Homes customers who are electrifying gas appliances, as well as to experiment with messaging and engagement with enrolled customers to kind of see what messages that we can send resonate with them and result in more energy use shifting. We then plan to take the lessons learned from that phase one to evaluate our next step. And so that may look like a change to the time guarantee. It may look like a cap on the discount amount if necessary. We also want to pay particular attention to the type of customers enrolling, and if we see that it's predominantly EV owners rather than customers electrifying gas appliances, we may revisit customer eligibility at that time. But by doing this phased approach, it really gives us a way to pilot and learn to inform the larger program after that. So finally, some quick takeaways. We've learned through this that a flat discount actually promotes non-beneficial behavior because the more peak energy is consumed, the larger a discount's rewarded. However, a TOU-based design rewards customers more the more they shift to a beneficial usage. It's also a very low or no risk opportunity. We don't anticipate any customers would run the risk of actually paying more than they would have on PG&E, even with a TOU Super discount structure. So finally, to reiterate, we're recommending tonight that you approve update to the ELEC design to reflect a TOU Super with a 30% off-peak discount, a 10% peak increase, and no adjustment to partial peak.
Thank you for that presentation, Peter. Let's see if we have any questions or comments from the board. Let's start off with Director Rennie.
Thank you for this presentation and the idea. I love it. This is great to move people to the off-peak time and help solve our duck curve problem. Hopefully, I think the purpose of this is to change behavior. And so you're talking about analyzing the data. Are you going to be able to analyze data to see the behavior change? And then the second part of the question is, what time frames are you looking at? Because I suspect suspect if you get somebody to enroll this, the first thing they're going to do is change their behavior, but they may start moving back to old behavior when they aren't thinking about it anymore. So I'm wondering what time period we're really going to do an analysis on this. And are you able to get individuals and see how it works, or are you going to get a big aggregate of everything?
Yeah, great questions. I think some of those details are to be fleshed out, but we will be able to see individuals who are enrolled in the rate and look at their usage at the time that they start on the rate, and we intend to track over time. So whether that's monthly or more frequently, to gauge how much of their usage has changed from peak to off peak, and we would with that same kind of reporting be able to tell if it then shifts back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Director Mohan?
If this is approved, when will the discount take effect?
We're targeting around May 1st.
May 1st this year.
Yes.
Will we be ahead of the PG&E discount plan, or have they already put that into effect?
So the PG&E rate is already in effect, and the SVCE discount on the rate is also already in effect. We're just proposing that we modify the rate, modify our discount to the rate. So customers today can enroll in the ELEC rate, and they will receive that 10% flat discount.
Also, it was my understanding that the PG&E already had this off-peak peak rates. Our bills show that. So is that something different?
Some rates have two time of use periods, have a peak and an off peak, and some rate plans have three where there's the partial peak, like the EV rate and the ELEC rate. But yes, you're right, the time of use does exist on other plans already.
Thank you.
Did you? Director, Vice Chair Walia?
Thank you. Thanks, Sheila, for raising the question. It brings to mind something slightly different. Peter, in this case, the flat 10% that customers are getting, some of those with the proposed super TOU would change, correct? So somebody who's getting the 10% may not get that, and that's in fact illustrating the point how we are trying to change, how to incentivize, and that was the conversation we were having even in the executive committee, that really making it difficult enough that it, unfortunately, that's the way to incentivize people.
Yeah, so as we do see that the average customer, which represents the bulk of our customers, would still receive a 10% discount on the TOU Super. So it would really just be the heavy peakers, the people using the most peak energy and the least off peak, that would really see a noticeable kind of change in their discount amount.
So the only ones who won't get the 10% would be the partial peaks, and those are shorter time windows.
Yes, the partial peak, would have no change in the discount rate.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Director Lee?
Thank you so much. So we talked about the pilot program. At this point, it's only for the first 1,000 households that apply for, that qualified. I guess my question is, we certainly would like to encourage more people to do this, but we're only doing it in order to have the time to do the analyses, to figure out how it's being used, and then based on those analyses, we'll come back to the board to ask for potentially more spaces for more customers to convert. Is that correct?
Yeah, so to date we've funded 25,000, is that right? We expect to be able to fund 25,000 customers on this rate.
Correct.
So the first, dip in the water with 1,000 customers would simply be able for us to feel out what's happening and make sure that the intended design parameters are being met.
Right, so the subsidy is not too much higher than what we expected, and how to calculate those numbers, because right now, even though we have 25,000, but want to be kind of going a little slow at first just to see what the numbers are before we include more customers in there, right?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess the question to me today really is deciding which TOU program that's proposed. Right now, the staff recommendation is doing the TOU Super, which potentially would have 10% higher than the PG&E rate when it comes to the peak hours, and currently is -10, right? Because that's a flat rate. So from -10 to +10, that's a 20% delta once this change were to take place. So for the peak user, as you say, the ones who use the peak a lot, it would be a very bad idea for them to to come and make that change. But again, it depends on the user. But for everybody else, the other program for the super will be beneficial to basically everybody else. That's my takeaway. I'm seeing this. So I guess I don't know if I want to necessarily penalize somebody with a 20% difference. So that's why the TOU Plus might be slightly less aggressive, but I think would still accomplish most of what we're trying to accomplish. So I guess I'm still, for me, the jury's still out whether we should go with the Plus or the Super, but I will let you ask and see how you could convince why we should go all the way to the most aggressive suggestion here.
So we understand this is an aggressive rate, and that was part of the design. We're really looking for the behavioral and technological changes with our customers. I'd say, is that on? For the peak users, they're still going to be receiving an overall discount of 3%. So nobody loses in this design, and because I expect the volumes to be low, the team and I will be reaching out to customers to make sure they have the right experience on the rate. We really want this to showcase what electrification and decarbonization can do when paired with the right rate.
So would staff be reaching out to those peak users and say, hey, you looks like you shouldn't have been one of the 1,000 because look at your numbers, this doesn't make sense, and let them go back to the current -10 then?
Yeah, so in a non-creepy way, we can reach out and explore their experience with the rate and offer assistance in whatever way we can do.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, CEO, and then.
I had a comment for Director Lee, and I think it's also maybe related to Director Mohan's question. And you all probably know it, so I may be just double-clicking on this. This is a voluntary rate. 170,000 customers are going to be on the regular TOU rate. They're just going to be going. So this is something that's voluntary and opt-in. So they're going to have to want to do it. So before they do it, they'll be looking at the plus minus of, am I a super peak user? And in fact, one of the charts that Peter had in the presentation showed, even if you're a super peak user and you don't change your behavior, you'll still save 3%. So it's voluntary, and you'll still save. So we've actually run the analysis. Literally, there are a handful of customers out of 170,000, something like 10 customers who will not save on this. And we hope they don't take this rate. So we hope they won't be in that top 1,000.
Director Makachuk?
Thank you. I really think that the super rate is a good one to pilot and to try with the first 1,000. So I really advocate that. My question for you is, what are other CCAs doing? Or is there any other CCA that is looking at adjusting their rates like this or similar to this?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm not aware of either. We decided this was what we wanted to do as the right thing for our customers.
I compliment you on your innovation.
Thank you. I'm happy to follow up with the answer to that question if you like.
You know, this seems like a fine idea, so I don't give a hoot what if the others aren't doing it, if we want to be the leaders and try this out. I don't share that concern. I actually saw these and I wanted to go with the super rate too, because I want to see what happens. I mean, and I look back to our earlier discussion about reliability and resource adequacy, and I think this only helps us. And this is only a pilot, and we're gonna get to see how things work, because frankly, people's behavior is complex. And a lot of people are not that market sensitive. And I say if they're going to pay extra to not pay attention, and we use that money to make other things happen, then that's the direction we should go. So let's see if there are any other comments. Any online? I don't see any, so I'm going to go to Director Rennie.
I've been stewing this in my head, and I thought I'd make the comment. The E-rate, the reason to join it, or the requirement to join it, is you've already electrified something. So people are going to be thinking, or this might get people to electrify. Oh, I can get on this rate. I have an EV charger, I have a water pump, or I have a heater. In my case, I'm actually attacking the heater first. And then I started thinking about, well, okay, you've now got these fancy rates. Well, I can't get my heater to heat my house in the middle of the day when it's already warm, when I really need it to run at night. So somebody like that might be going, well, geez, does this really work for me? You're trying to penalize me when I need to run my heater as everything's cooling down. And I think what you said was you're going to, in a non-creepy way, we like that, reach out to customers and try to understand, the different thoughts that are going on, and hopefully you'll find customers that maybe contacted you to find out about it and then decided not to do it, and find out why. And because the only reason I would at all consider not doing the super is about the idea that I might be discouraging people from electrifying. This, the E-rate was to encourage that, and I don't want to erase that encouragement. So again, this is an experiment, so let's think of it that way also.
Okay. I don't see any other comments from board members, so let's go on to the public. Do we have any public comment? I do not see any in the room. Do we have any online? Do not hear of any. So we're moving it back then to our board, and we're looking to adopt a resolution on this new E-rate with the super being proposed. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion from Director Mekachuk and a second from Director Meadows. Let's proceed with the vote.
Thank you. And to confirm, this motion would be to approve Resolution 2023-07. Chair Tyson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Walia.
Aye.
Mohan.
Yes.
Meadows.
Aye.
Rennie.
Aye.
Mekachuk.
Aye.
Carruthers.
Aye.
Abe-Koga.
Aye.
Srinivasan.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye to
Hilton.
non-creepy super.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Hilton. Your vote was noted. Director Chua.
Aye.
Thank you. I'll note this motion carries with Director Squazzola absent.
Great, thank you. And I think we should add non-creepy to all of our resolutions. I think it's got a certain ring to it. With that, we've completed our regular calendar. Do we have any board member announcements and or thoughts on future agenda items? Director Meadows.
Yes, so I'm pleased to say at our council meeting last night, and I know it's going to sound like that we're a little late, but we really weren't. We did adopt REACH codes at the end of last year, but we took a phased approach, and last night we adopted sort of the real REACH codes, which were as recommended by our environmental commission. And the reason it was a phased approach is because we did send ours to the CEC, and we had some local cost effectiveness data too. So we wanted to present that to the community in the course of adopting these stricter REACH codes. So we're really a Bay Area model, or a little better in some respects.
Congratulations on that move, and unfortunately you're right next to us, so making us look bad, but I know it wasn't on purpose. Do we have any other announcements?
This is old news, but I don't think we actually announced this at a meeting at the Bay Area Air Quality Management District Board meeting in March. The board did pass amendments to Rule 9.4 and 9.6 that will ban the replacement of gas appliances starting in 2027. And part of that, too, is to conduct a study to make sure that we're ready to do that, and that will need to be completed 2 years prior to the start of this ban. So the district will be going out and creating a stakeholder group to work on the study, and I expect CCAs to be a part of that. Thank you.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will.
So maybe we need to hedge with water heaters in 26, gas water heaters? Ha, that's a joke, everybody. That's a joke.
Any other announcements? We see Director Chua. Let's go to you.
Thank you, Chair. It wasn't mentioned, but Milpitas has Earth Day as well, Saturday, April 22nd, from 10 to noon at one of our parks.
All right, 10 to noon on April 22nd. Thank you. Any others? I do not see any others. With that, I am going to say we are going to move on to the next phase, which is our public comment on a closed session. You may see that we have a closed session coming up, and it's conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. At this point, I open it up to see if there's public comment on that closed session. Do we have any in the room? I do not see any. Do we have any online? We do not. So we'll close the public comment on that. And so we will now be moving to closed session, and then we will return to report back from closed session. Thank you. open session. As soon as we get our ducks in a row and our felines herded. All right, I'm returning us to open session. Thank you for rejoining us, and I am able to report that we have nothing to report from closed session. With that, I wish to thank everybody for your participation and wish you a good evening, and we are now adjourned.